On the surface, Servant of Dawn has everything a deck wants. Dragius is great at pushing for damage, Gaia can clear anything in the game after boosting to 2900 with a skill, opposing Dragius fail to clear any of your own boss monsters when backed by the barrier, and the skill doesn't restrict your ability to play advantage generating cards like Paka Paka Chew. With all of this, it feels like it should be pretty good. And in fact, it's remarkably similar to the incredibly popular and successful Beast Aggro deck. Hammer Crush becomes Ghost Cyclone, Ancient Arise Dragon becomes Gaia the Fierce Knight, and all that's left is finding a bit of room for Flame Cerberus, and you've covered everything. Unfortunately for Gaia, these changes are all incredibly significant. 100 attack points seem small, but in a meta where your 2500 attack point monsters are being backed up by 400 attack point debuffs, the 2900 Gaia will trade, where a 3000 attack Ancient Arise Dragon will clear. Furthermore, if Ancient Arise Dragon survives a turn, it's able to use the effect again, whereas Gaia can only be used with the skill on the turn it is normal summoned. On the flip side, if you have the barrier, Ancient Arise Dragon is going to trade with 2800 monsters, which is very relevant with Dragonic Slayer and Giftarist being in the format. Moving on to the spells, Ghost Cyclone can only be activated if you have no monsters on field, making it unable to resolve standoffs in your favor when both players have a trap card set and are afraid to attack. Hammer Crush Deal is also going to thin the deck and can further mitigate its cost by setting up a Currybot or Paka Paka Chew with its discard. In contrast, Flame Cerberus is an extra set of tribute monsters that are going to break up your hand and struggle to deal with any of the high-level monsters opponents are playing. The differences between these decks are small, but they stack up. Servant of Dawn ends up feeling like a cheap knockoff, the Wish version, though we have Beast Aggro at home. So, what legs does this deck stand on? Why would you ever choose to use it? For one, Servant of Dawn is able to buff any normal monster, rather than just Gaia. If the opponent has a weaker boss on board, you're able to give the boost to Gazelle, allowing it to contest opposing Dragorite, Masaki, and Silent Assailant. Similarly, boosting Flame Cerberus will protect Gaia or your Summoned Skull from incoming Widespread Ruins, while still clearing the 2500 benchmark. In the Celery matchup, Gaia's 2100 defense is enough to stay safe with the barrier when attacked by a ruler, whereas Ancient Arise Dragon would fall. For similar reasons, Servant of Dawn has a notably better Disco Fever matchup, as one of the power plays of that deck involves using Torn of the Windweaver to change battle position before Kanan boosts to 2100 with the skill. Early game high rolls with Ghost Cyclone will feel better than early Hammer Crushes, drawing you a card without having to perform any discard. Lastly, Servant of Dawn is an archive skill, allowing you to play it on any character and benefit from bluffing your deck. Choosing Roa bluffs Heavy Metal, making the opponent more likely to set 3 and pass rather than summoning boss monsters on turn 1. This will leave them open to Dragius. However, Hammer Crush Deal is already able to do that as well. On the flip side, playing as Gakuto bluffs Celerity, incentivizing the opponent to summon their turn 1 bosses and otherwise play cards in attack mode to avoid clogging their hands after Delay Directive and avoiding big damage from Kime Ruler and Piercing Samurai. You could choose other characters as well, but picking Roman is more likely to make your opponent breathe a sigh of relief rather than change up their game plan. In the end, the benefits rarely outweigh the downsides, but being worse is not the same as being bad. If you're a fan of Yugi, playing prismatic cards, or even just being a hipster that uses unpopular decks, this is one of the best choices. Let's head into the replays. So our first game is against the new Beast Gear World cards. And before you click away, I promise this is an interesting replay. They start by revealing they are on Hammer Crush Deal, and we are only going to have a lone Paka Paka Chew to defend ourselves. We set our cards and pass turn. Unfortunately, they get the 50-50 with Hammer Crush and blow up Widespread Ruin before bringing out their first Lyogon. They fill up the field with monsters and fill the back row as well before coming in for a ton of damage. With 3 back row, I am afraid that they are going to have cards like the Barrier to stop this Dragius. So, on our turn, when we draw into a bunch of low-level monsters, we are going to simply bring out Gaia the Fierce Knight rather than Dragius. We pair it with Gazelle and go in to take out some of the opponent's monsters. Swing in for 600, and then Gazelle ends up falling to the barrier, proving me right. Not summoning Dragius is absolutely the correct play. We need to be patient if we want to get the correct amount of value from our cards. We pass back to the opponent, and here comes a second Lyogon. It uses the effect and boosts by 800. Unfortunately, our barrier is not going to be enough to save Gaia, so we just let it go. It's our turn, and we draw a Ghost Cyclone. Once again, they still have a face-down card, so we're going to play it conservatively. We bring out Summon Skull and Magical Ghost before boosting up the Summon Skull and clearing the opponent's board. We've been holding onto this Dragius for so long. We end up passing to the opponent one more time, and let's see how it goes. Ghost Cyclone clears out barrier. They set a couple of monsters, and Catapult Kong comes out, but we don't have any defense position monsters. They replace Ghost Cyclone with another set, and we draw. Once again, we are not summoning Dragius because we are afraid of that back row. Monster Reincarnation unbricks our hand full of tribute monsters and lets us bring in the Gaia the Fierce Knight. We boost it up and run right into Widespread Ruin. Once again, Dragius would have gotten no value on that board. We clear Kong with Summon Skull and pass it back one final time. Paka Pakachu uses the effect, and now, with only 700 life points remaining, they are going to summon out a Lyogon, then boost it by 800 points. However, we have a 200 attack point lead, letting us survive with 100 life. And now, it is finally time. This Dragius that we've been holding onto for so long is able to make a move with no back row to stop it. We activate Double Doom, summon some monsters, and head into battle. 200, then a double attack, and we finish out the game with just 100 life left. I know Beast Aggro World is not the best deck in the game, so next up we have a match against Resonance, a deck that is still incredibly powerful. We open with a couple of tribute monsters, so we're going to go ahead and set Gaia. And it looks like they don't open any level 5 or higher monsters themselves. We use the opportunity to fill our board with level 6 and 7 monsters before taking out the opponent's set cards. You can't see it in the replay, but due to the weird way that the hourglass works, I end up reading this as a recital. Ultimately, this ends up being incorrect, but I do know it is a trap card of some variety. They bring out a Triad Drago before tributing off for Dragonic Slayer. Unfortunately, this does mean they are going to be able to destroy my back row. Luckily though, Dragorite is not strong enough to clear any of my monsters. They can only destroy Summon Skull before passing it back. We draw for turn and find another Gaia the Fierce Knight, so we re-establish our board, including a second Flame Cerebrus for the good measure. Servant of Dawn activates to get over this Slayer, and I already knew it was not the barrier due to the way that the hourglass was working. We clear out the board one more time, and it passes over to them. Tribute summoning out Dragius. Unfortunately, there is not much I could do against it, so Double Doom activates and they swing over both copies of Gaia the Fierce Knight. We are down 2 Gaia and Summon Skull. We are running out of outs to Dragius in our deck. However, we find the third Gaia just in time. Our hand is definitely suboptimal as we are left with 2 level 7 monsters in hand and a lone Gaia on field. However, they bring out an unexpected boss, a second copy of Dragius. I don't think this is the right way to build this deck, as you definitely need copies of Pitcher, and Phoenix Dragon is also really important. So 2 Dragius is a surprise, but it is a welcome one, as the barrier allows us to destroy it before we set up our multi-strike Dragon Dragius and end the game. Tribute it off, activate Double Doom, bring out the Gazelle, and they are finally going to reveal that the set card has been a Phantom Bind this whole time. However, it is not going to be enough, and Resonance falls to the Servant of Dawn. This time, I just want to show off that the deck really is like any other aggro deck at its core. Our opponent brings out a Lone Dragius for their turn 2, and we are going to punish this incredibly. They bring out the card, blow up 2 of our monsters, but that face down card is not a threat to us. We summon out Multi-Strike Dragon Dragius after using Silverwolf to debuff their Dragius. And since that's not a trap card capable of stopping us, we bring out a full field and they just immediately concede to the power of Dragius Beatdown. Just like any other deck capable of running multiple Dragius, the deck is going to just high roll and win some amount of games. And when you combine that with the ability to high roll and win with Widespread Ruin, the deck's minimum win rate is still fairly reasonable. So we've established that this deck has a good aggressive game plan, but how does its grind game hold up? Here is a nice long match that we had against a Celerity player. Because of the length, we're going to play this one at double speed. My opponent goes first and sets up a Kime Ruler backed up by a trap card. I go for Gaia, and while I do expect them to have a trap, there's nothing I can do about it. We crash, and Gazelle gets in. This is where you would really want to use an Ancient Arise Dragon instead of Gaia. Celerity lets Umegumi take out my Gazelle, but we do get in for some more damage. I play around Widespread Ruin by boosting the Cerebus, giving up 200 damage in exchange for the safety. We swing in, and they use a barrier just to clear out their back row a little bit, going into their turn. Yami Ruler comes down and uses Delay Directive. They Celerity my monster, but they do not use Non-Death because they are afraid of my own Widespread Ruin, and they want to try popping it with their Battle Slash. Another Yami Ruler comes down, and they use this Celerity to clear out my Cerebrus. A Ghost Cyclone is drawn for turn, but I can't use it as I have a full field. They finally swing in with some more Yami Rulers, but I am able to weaken one before summoning out Servant of Dawn. I'm no longer Yami locked, so I try to get over a Yami Ruler, but their Widespread Ruin comes in. They are getting kind of low on deck space. Umegumi comes in, and I am losing my Gaia, but they forget to lower it by 500 attack, so my life points are safe. Ghost Cyclone takes out their own Ghost Cyclone, and I recycle a card with Paku Paku Chu. We bring out a Gaia the Fierce Knight, and finally clear out one of these Yami Rulers, as well as the Umegumi with a Dragius. I have only 7 cards left in deck, and Dragius has no need to attack twice. In order to avoid decking out on the next turn, they play down 2 Seahorse Carriers to fill up their hand. However, I have an extra card in deck, so all I have to do is set my Widespread Ruin, and they are unable to get past me. We pass back and forth, and the game ends in my victory.